All right, reference text rail operations yard, U.S. Army Transportation School, reference 636. Railroads tell the story of an experienced yard clerk who once hesitated to hold the check of the 125 cars on the ground. He had checked the track for 2 short hours before. Explained later that the yard master was merely trying to keep him busy, being a new at railroading. He did not know and understand the circumstances to make the second check of the track necessary. That he checked and contained the center cut of the 65 cars, one destination, 30 of the mixed freight on each end. The yardmaster knows the train consists of 3 hours before it arrived. When it was still in an hour, he called the yard crew to be ready for the move of 65 cars in the next division terminal. Because of the 125 car minimum of each to the train, it is necessary for the ready the 60 additional cars for the movement. Accordingly, the yardmaster planned to spot the air test of the tracks of the 30 cars. Each one group belonged to the head of the end of the 65 groups of the other group on the other rear end. When the inbound was ordered to the yard, instruction was given the engine crew to spot the train at the air plug. Then the air inspector tested the 2 tracks of the 30 cars each. After the inbound stopped, the car inspectors looked at the train for defective cars, and air inspectors tested the air. These operations were simultaneous. Yard crews were moved in the mix of the freight of each end, substituted the 2 cuts of 30 cars each. He had previously been tested upon successful terminal air test. The outbound road engine of the train was ready to depart. However, it was necessary to check the entire train to determine that the 30 cars on each of the match weighed bills that they were on the proper classification group. It is understandable that the yard clerk was being imposed upon, that he had no knowledge of the foregoing, and he probably would not have been alone in his failure to understand that railroadmen in the years of experience in non-operating departments might be inclined to wonder just what was happening if they were right at the busy rail yard. The back and forth switching of the flat cars appeared that the compliance with the overall job represents complicated, highly specialized business. Train must be taken into the yard, inspected cars, classified switch cars and cars in the cut area, cut cars doubled together according to the destination commodity. The train sent out to the yard into the time to make the room for additional arrivals. The text explains the method of facility using the switching and classifying cars. Freight operations are discussed, but the same principles generally handling passenger cars. Chapter 1 explains the yard layout on the tracks. Chapter 2 discusses the freight grouping and switching cars. Chapter 3 covers the duties of the yard personnel. Chapter 4 discusses safe working methods and safety rules. A glossary peculiarly to the railroading is provided in Appendix 2 of this text. On other terms, similar meanings are among the employees of the some railroads. However, the listed glossary throughout the text. Before beginning the study of the text, you should become familiar with the terms in the glossary. Refer to them again whenever necessary. Chapter 1, Layout and Tracks. Rail yards it has been said, are natural bottlenecks in movement of the freight of one geographical area to another. In theory, at least cars may enter the receiving yard as fast as they arrive. In practice, however, they can depart only as fast as the yard forces inspect, repair, classify, and switch, and double the according of the set-off railroad. Depending upon the density of the track, the number of the rail lines, geographical location, or yard may be one of the 3 types of divided progressive combination. Each of the certain characteristic facilities distinguished to a great extent determine its operation. The 3 types of yards, along with the characteristic facilities, are discussed in this chapter in the order mentioned. 1-2 Divided yards. Most railroads are double-track mainline divided in the designated yards according to the direction of the movement of the trains in either direction. This is called current of the traffic is usually specified by the timetable, since many of the railroads run in east to west direction. Typically divided the yards into east and west yards. Freight moving as westerly direction enters the west yard. Eastbound freight is handled in the east yard. Freight in arriving or orientating the yard opposite the direction of the traveled switch to opposing the yard of the yard. Cruise terminals located on the single track light and line may not have separated yards. However, usually a track of yard tracks is usually westbound freight of the similar section of the eastbound cars. 1-3 1-3 The progressive yard. In an ideal arrangement of the busy terminal progressive in the further divisions of both east and west yards, the subdivided in 3 yards, receiving classification department figure 1-1 such illustrates the arrangement. Receiving yards inbound from the westbound line and pulling in the receiving yard marked A figured 1-1, and the yard clerks may track check before recording the car's initial numbers, serial numbers in the car. Inspector examined the cars of defect switching and listed are prepared at the track, checked in the completed classification yard. When it's ready by switch, the yard engine shoves the train on the switching lead between the yards A and B, shown in Figure 1-1. The individual cars groups are then switched to the various tracks in Yard B classification yards according to the switching list that specifies the track number of each of the classification. Frequently, a hump yard contains an artificial hill over the cars are pushed. Gravity cars will roll down to the lead switches. The tenders of the switch to permit the cars to enter the proper tracks. Speed is controlled by the yard brakeman and car riders who ride the cars and manipulate the handbrakes or car retarders. May be installed mechanically gripping the wheel of the flange of the movement cars. The creation of the friction to reduce speed. When cars and retarders are used, the switch end usually are not employed. The retarder operates generally stationed in towers open and close the switch. Electrical control humping switching is faster than the old back and forth flat yard switching because the movement is continuous in the forward direction. C. The departure yard. When the track is filled with the yard B, the Figure 1-1 move the departure C. Departure yard C. When enough cars accumulate in track yard C, the outbound road crew is ordered to move the train to the next division terminal. Or when the sufficient cars are proper classification accumulation of the various tracks, they are doubled together as described in Chapter 2 in paragraph 2.8. The advantages. The principal advantage of the progressive yard is reduction of delays of the both yard crews, and when the train stops at yard A, the engine may proceed immediately to the running track with the roundhouse to the end of the roundhouse and switching where in the progressive really on the lead. The yard engine would have to stop operations, pull up the check, running the track switch. Therefore, by lose valuable time, the same situation would prevail in the road trains with departure and classification. Here, delay to the switching crew would be considerably great, and the slowing starting of the train might block the lead for as long as 15 minutes should the train be delayed in getting dispatcher's permission to head out of the main track, and loss of term a greater. 1-4 combination yard. The railroads frequently incorporate the receiving classification departure facilities into one yard that results in insufficient volume of work to justify the three separate yards from the lack of land to expand the yard layout in the combination yard. The number of the tracks depends on the volume of the traffic. The track of the length to determine the distinguished length of inbound outbound trains. They are generally flat. Switching is done back and forth movement of the yard engine of the cut cars. In a combination is impossible. Arbitrarily assigned to tracks and receiving only road trains must be taken into the yard without the delay of the preventing of blocking the main track, just which is used for the decision. The yard master is crowded the yard. He may be forced to accept the train on a trackable and any trackable to accommodate it. He may find it necessary to use the two tracks and clear ones of too short. A typical combination yard shown in Figure 1-2 longer tracks are shown in A and are used in interchangeable inbound outbound trains remaining in the track classification. 1-5 tracks in yard characteristics speed up all the phases of the yard work. Certain of the tracks desirable necessary. This includes main track, outside of the yard track, divot leads, running track, switch leads, and sufficient track length. Each of these explained in the separate subparagraph in order to mention. Outside main track. The main track outside the yard of the track shown in Figure 1 and 1-2. The time may be saved in a switching yard that makes the main track separates the main yard from the auxiliary yard, or in the east one of the west one from a west one. Crews are delayed to crossing from the one yard to another yard. Masters have no control of the main track. Dispatcher personnel must be begotten before the crews cross. Should a yard crew with 30 or 40 cars find the necessary cross main tracks, switching lead, consequently entirely switching operation may be tied up for 15 to 30 minutes depending on the mainline traffic. An ideal arrangement is to have the mainline track, the main tracks located in the several kilometers yard tracks, while the main track with low density may not restrict yard work greatly. Only with a heavy density traffic may delay operations to the extent that it would be an advantage to relocate the main track. Divided leads. A desirable arrangement is having divided leads at each end of the yard. They enables the two yard crews at the same time where only a single lead exists. If the two crews are employed, one crew generally couples in cars and makes room for the trucks while the other uses the lead in switching cars. C. Running tracks usually extend for the entire length of the yard. If the running tracks provide the route travel to any point of the yard independent of the switching leads, the classification. Such arrangement is shown in Figure 1-1. When the two running tracks exist, the assigned directional designation, such as eastbound, westbound. Most railroads permit your road and yard crews to use the track without the prior yardmaster permission, provided that the movement and direction specified in the track designated. The exemption of the yard facility tracks is discussed in paragraph 1.6. Running tracks are generally only one of those that may be used without getting permission from the yard master. Long leads and approaches providing access to switching crew to any of the track with the yard switching leads must be sufficient length to accommodate the cuts and draft of the cars normally handled in particular yard. They also lead out of the yard of running tracks of the main line. Long approaches switching leads are desirable so that the yard can move long cuts from the one track to the another. Track length should be long enough to accommodate the inbound and outbound trains without doubling, moving off the one rack, moving cars off of one rack, coupling the cars to another. If a 100 car train enters the yard capable of holding so only 65, it is necessary to double 35 cars to another track and block the lead with making a double. Frequently delays the yard crew switching the cars on the lead. If an outbound train is built on two or more tracks, then limited delay would occur, doubling the train. Only on the other hand, when the train is one track, the air test, which may be only after the train is complete, is made before the train moves out of the block lead. Further, pusher's engine may be used to help reduce the delay pushing the train out of the yard. 1.6. The other yard facilities. In addition, with the tracks leads necessary, the receiving and classification, numerous other as required in large-scale yard operations. These include the repairing rolling stock, service motor of powers, locomotives, and these miscellaneous uses that discussed in subparagraphs that follow. A repair track and a large numerous track is required for the repairing cars. The light and heavy repairs are made to the load. The equipment passing through the yard. Completely rebuilding facilities usually maintained by the railroads and their own equipment. Generally, light repair tracks, rip tracks exist with additional transfer tracks with the trade of the transfer to the other cars to prevent length delay caused by heavy repairs. Tracks of servicing locomotive. Tracks necessary for servicing locomotives include the inspection of the pits and tracks leading to the turntable, roundhouse, and house, fuel and water stations. As ash pit and the steam locomotives is used after being service supplied with all the need of equipment. Locomotives are placed on a ready track to wait for the turn and to take a train out on the road. Miscellaneous tracks. A yard may contain a track with a caboose, wreck trains, live and dead car, storage, work train equipment, and also often necessary tracks for storing fuels, sand, ties, rails, other maintenance way equipment, and a railroad handles and livestock perishable freight, and it must have facilities feeding the water and for resting livestock for re-icing refrigerator cars containing perishable shipments. 1.7. Use of progressive combination yards. The layout of the progressive yard of the large railroad terminals figures 1.1 incorporates some of the desirable tracks. The previously mentioned east and westbound yards. East and west yards are divided in the receiving classification, departure, and the combination yard shown in Figure 1.2. The receiving classification departure tracks are incorporated into one yard. The following subparagraphs illustrate how these yards can be used in advantage of their other. Through the trains in most yards, there are occasion inbound do not have to be switched. Such trains require only an inspection, usually clerical work on the waybills and change of the crews. Should the trains require expedited movement, and if the mainline track permits, they may be inspected on the main track forward without entering the yard. However, if they do not require expedited movement, trains for the type of this may be handled with the progressive yard illustrated in Figure 1.1 shows as follows. 1. The train would be brought into the receiving yard A, any track of the route from 1 through 3. It would head through its track out through the lead, through the bypass track marked XX, into the departure yard of only the track from 1 through 10. The track would be inspected, checked by the yard clerk, and air tested, and no defective cars were found. The train would be ready to forward without switching. 2 crew switching combination. The combination illustrated by the Figure 1.2. The tracks are interchangeable. Note that the tracks are numbered 1 through 17. The 2 switching leads are shown at the east end. Assume that the 2 yards crews are switching cars of the lead. Crew number 1 uses lead 1, and crew number 2 works on lead 2. If the crew number 2 of the cars of the tracks from 1 through 10, if they cannot would switch then without delaying with the other crew, the reverse situation prevails. If the crew number 1 has the cars of tracks 11 through 17, the yard master therefore exercises good judgment and assigning various switching cuts to the two crews. The two to the crew number one. He assigns the cars intended to primary tracks of 1 through 10. To the other crew, he tries to assign the cars which are predominantly on tracks 11 through 17. However, each crew has some of the belonging on their other track. These cars are held out temporarily on any of the track enough, with both crews finishing the other cars exchanging the only belonging to each other, the complete with the switching order to prevent any possible confusion, and they would exchange places and leads and switch to the correct tracks of the same car that had previously held out. See the advantages. Note that in the same time that both examples presented in subparagraph A, B, and the situation in the subparagraph, a road train may bypass the train leaded with the marked X near the yard in the figure 1-1. For the train, unassisted is able to proceed to the departure yard. The saving of the time of the yard crew would otherwise have to move its whether the train left the receiving yard, the employment to switching the crews working outline in subparagraph by all savings time, frequently switching on the track as rapidly as possible as a result. In a clear track, the next inbound track arrival without the clear track ready for the yard master would be forced to hold the road train on the main track and possible delay the first class train. 1-8. The railroad. 1-8 summary. A railroad yard is a place where the car received or classified as some of the departure, regardless of the type of the yard, progressive combinator, physical layout of the characteristic. Chief objective of any of the railroad is to receive and classify forward the freight as quickly as possible, unless it is the last decade of the so few yards encountered the continental United States and foreign countries that are out. They're set up ideally, but explained with the increase of the freight and passenger traffic, without regard for the knowledge of the eventual requirements used. The military railroader's job in the theater operation is to survey the facility and operate it and determine how to best realize maximum usefulness and the foregoing study of the yard's characteristics. Facility should have place with military railroads in the better position to carry out such alignment. 2-1 General. The fundamental purpose of the yard of receiving inbound trains is to remove such cars as may be necessary to make up the new transit, consisting of the various combinations of the group received. On the groups on the hand, the chapter deals with the procedure involved with getting the work done. 2-2 The freight group. The governing of the group principle throughout the grouping and blocking processes group each of the cuts of the cars so that the position outbound of the train requires the maximum handle and setting for the outside of the destination or the next of the car. For example, suppose the yard master at the Conroy yard shows the figure 2-1 receives the inbound train of 28 cars. The first 14 are bound to the maxi yard and the last 14 of the do-it yard. On the hand of the yard of the 14 cars on the Elton, and he orders the train to the particular track of the yard with either the 14 maxi or the 14 do-it are cut off and set over the 14 on Elton. The 28 cars of the 14 maxi and Elton, if they move made in the head end of the 14 Elton and do-it, then this is done at the rear end. The double back of the against the 14 inbound cars. The train is now complete with the 3 blocks grouping it with the 14 cars each one of the group of the Maxi, Elton, and Do It. Each group is in proper order in the train and arrival of the Maxi yard. The first 14 cars behind the locomotive are set off. The same operation is repeated in Elton and Dewton, and this is greatly simplified examples of the application for the car growing principle, actual occupation. Operations, training, braking, and making is greatly complicated with the numerous groups and designation ordinarily involved. 2-3 Classification. Classifying cars consists of assigning them to the particular designation group, switching them to the tracking containing the figure 2-1 typical grouping area, particular designation group, and switching to them to the track containing the particular group. When enough of the cars accumulate on one of the group, the combination of the groups of the outbound train is in order. The cars consisting of several groupings of the blocks are set in order. The train order then will be set off along the route. The first block to be set off is placed immediately behind the engine, followed by the next set off group, and so on. Having the blocks placed directly behind the locomotive involved the expenditure of movement and setting them off in special cases, the exemption of the sequence. For example, occasional group of the expedited cars may be carried out to the next engine and location where they would be out of their normal standing. The position would enable the yard for the receiving the terminal to remove the train from before the car inspector blue flag the track discussed in chapter 4 on which they arrived. The cars might then be placed on the heat on the departing train again and out of the normal standing again. standing and handling it identically at the next division's terminal. That they would be kept in the head end of the train. All trains handling them until the time of the arrival and destination. The method saves at which much as 48 hours over the 800-kilometer haul. It may be equally convenient to set off either end of the train in the yard for each, whether an engine or cabooses are to be changed. There might be other exemptions, but ordinarily preceding the sequence prevails. 2.4 Typical grouping area. Look back at the figure 2.1. Note that the represents a large section of the railroad resembling the Y Conroy Yard and Maxi Yard distance of 136 kilometers, making Elwood Division for the study of the purpose of the division enlarged to show the various stations along the route. Note that beyond the Maxi Yard, only divisions have been designated, but no way station details shown in such way they have only repeat the general pattern of the given to the Elwood Division, such as the south route of the upper left in the figure consists of the 4 divisions, as does the north route. 2.5 Note that the abbreviation given the parentheses of various city towers and is shown in figure 2.1 between the Conroy and Maxi. The cars in Conroy was designated in the cane and marked RK, and cars in Maxi Yard of the Sand River Division are marked in AY. The cars designated in points between Dua and Bellevue are DW and BV. The freight, because of their areas, represents the last group of the convoys responsible for the specific grouping. 2.6 Advanced grouping. Usually freight arriving with the originating of the convoy should be switched according to the destination for the convoy to the Maxi. Only all the freight is designated for the points on the beyond on either fork of the Y would either fork of the Y be a Y freight or forward of the Conrail Maxi Yard in the mixed states. The mixed freight train is one of the has not been built up in the station, although also that is one of the contains the passenger and freight cars, or possible that the Conrail Yard might have that are part of the detailed grouping of Elwood Division. Only 3 of the groups in the north route and south route and the AY. However, assume that the yard facility of the Maxi is somewhat limited. The Conroy is the larger consolidated terminal, having receiving and classification departure yard as shown in figure 1.1. Large workforces would therefore be economical to classify the Conroy all over 8 yards of Maxi Bellevue to the maximum you do it, while the several subgroups may exist within each of the division north and south routes of the typical group of the figure area of 2 figured 1 attempted to made the Conroy to detailed classification with the areas of the following subparagraph groups further discussing the group of the 6 type typical trains. The lineup of the standing is simply an arrangement of the black cuts cars and beyond the engine and the caboose, and 6 typical trains of the Conroy Yard must as follow. The engine is 2 BL, 2 BMD, 2 RK, 2 OG, 2 WD, 2 at 3 FAV, 1 BO, 1 LY, 1 AY. Caboose is a 22 cars. Engine number 2 is 2 BL, 2 8 RC, 5 OGs, 2 BOs, 2 AYs. Caboose and 20 cars. Engine 11 AY. Engine number 3 11 AY, 10 MOs, 10 BRs, 10 BV. 11 BVs at 42 cars. Engine 10 EV and 11 ELT, 10 CY, 10 DW. Caboose 42 cars. Engine number 5 15 AY to 15 DW, 12 BV. Caboose and cars 42 cars. Engine 2 RKs, 3 WDs, 4 FVs, 6 BOLs, 1 LY, 1 AY. 2 AYs and 2 WDs. Caboose is 20 cars. Check out the standing trains within the figure 2 shows the train 1 and 2, the local freight trains between the Conroy and Max Road, to set off the transit stations along the way. The actual practice such that the train would also pick up the stations, the movement of the points farther than along the line. Each of the pickup would have to be covered with the train, which the car block bound for the same destination in or correct orders between the blocks, and to ensure the readiness behind the engine and the setting off the proper point along the route. Train 3 consists of the 4 blocks of the cars all bound for the Maxi Yard of the points beyond the south route. It would move the Conroy to Maxwell through the travel to the arrival. The Maxi would become the responsibility of the yard master. The Maxi groups of them had been separated for each of the making of the new trains by the except for the bad order of the cars. The block would not be broken up additionally for the car's destination. However, the wood added the appropriate blocks. Maxi Yard now becomes the Everett division of the yard as the Maxi decides on the basis of the number of the cars currently in his yard of the south route of the destination would make it required for the outbound south of the train of the trains to consist of the arriving train where such that they could the next division little or no charge would require the fresh engine of the crew. More often, however, that would be broken up. The new trains formed with, remember, the convoy and yard ample to the facility. Those maxis limited the grouping making of the train convoy, would such as they required only the minimum additional yard with the maxi and brief, of which work is done, and then whatever the extent of the crews of the facilities exist. Ordinarily, there should be closed as a possible point of the freight of origin. D. The train moved the convoy maxi through the fate of the arrival of maxi yard master might choose a simple cut of the AEV. The inclusion of the south rate of the train would keep all the north route blocks together, add them to whenever necessary, conform to minimize train size requirements. He would also provide the fresh crew with the locomotive to move the train from the Elton to the next division terminal. The north route of the train 5 is also the freight of the maxi, which arrives with the broken block part of the new train's movement to the 5 destination. Ordinarily, a train on the convoy would not include blocks of destination or on both the north or south routes. For example, because the blocks are relatively large, it is better to keep them moving forward. On some railroads, minimum car limit of the train observed. For example, some roads, minimum number of the cars at the time of the freight of each of the train. The variation depends on the rules of the particular road, type of freight, and typical motive power siding length. General policy is running slightly over the minimum rather than making up the trains with fewer cars, lesser to the tonnage. However, in their 3-liter operations, much shorter trains are the rule. Minimum car limits and tonnage are not primarily interests. F. Train 6 presents a situation quite differently from the other trains. 16 head cars is designated to local station between R and K and LY. The remainder of the car of the train, therefore the AY and beyond. Ordinarily, this type of the train is uneconomical to run because of the 5 local stops necessary to the starting of the 5 heavy freight from each of the stop. Also, it is the traffic of the division heavier than frequent stopping and the starting of the train might cause the delay of the train. However, the train, such as Train 6, might be an entire load with the expedited freight that they were served and shortage of the crews. Also, during the period of the depressed business of the civilian railroad, whether no other trains were behind, such as a train might be run when a train 6 is built in the proper order. The ordinary circumstances, operational would impractical. 2-7 inbound trains. Before inbound arrives in the yard master issues the instruction directing a particular switch tender lines of the switch of the train entry, which comes into the receiving yard. 2 things are done before the switching of the car is undertaken. The train is inspected with the car inspector. The yard clerk makes his track check to determine the standing of the cars in the train. Ordinarily, these jobs are done simultaneously, discussed in the following subparagraphs. Inspection after setting out the warning signal of the blue flags during the day, of the blue lights at night, and to warn the yard crews that the men are working on the cars. If the cars inspector should start the immediate inspection of the train on long trains, but the 4 inspector may be used to the good advantage. 2 men on each side of the train to start the working from the head of the 2 head end and 2 from the rear end. On completion of the inspection, the meet approximately in the middle of the train. This would made a record of all the defective cars. They applied appropriate shop tags to all the cars needed for the repairs report. The shop cars is furnished with the yard master, and the blue flags are removed by the inspector. The train check. While the inspectors are going over the train, the yard clerk usually all the outside clerk is also busy with the supply blank forms. He moves along the train recording the initial burnt number of each of the cars whenever the loaded and empty of the type of the box, the tank, chopper, or flat. If any of the cars have the seals, he also required the seal number to apply the new seals where necessary. Makes a record of all the seals used. This is all called the train track. A sample form is filled out with the yard crew shown in Figure 2.2. The sample no real seal number to the shown because the car ordinarily requires such a box car. Refrigerator cars also shown in the report as empty. No seals are after required. If they are required, an additional column could be drawn out each on the form which seals the number of the card recorded. But the yard clerk may start the check either at the end of the train and shows the top of the form, of the end of which the check was started is shown in the upper left-hand corner. Corner of the track check form in the Figure 2.2. The yard check clerk has began his check of the west end yard of the train on the track 5 of the yard. Is orderly in the yard master completed the track with verified the waybills authority moving for the cars, determining that their cars are for every waybill and a bill for every car. The bill should be lined up exact order of the cars standing in the train in the military, railroad, freighting, waybills, transportation, railway service personnel only with the actual operating overseas. Television cameras, videotapes, tape recorders are often used in larger and busier commercial yard terminals to perform both track and train checks. 2.8. The switch list. When the yard has made all the entries of the track check, it is determined the yard master or his representative who converts it to a switch list makes up the switch list from it and done in adding the destination of the cars, each number of the track classification with the switch yard, the number of the order of the cuts must be completely breaking up the train. Commercial railroad often utilize automated systems developing switch lists and train check of the train and the track that has been converted to switch list shown in Figure 213. 2.3 is the switch engine could not handle the engine train in one operation because of the length of the ordinary train would be make such move unwildly and practically. The train is simply divided into sections. Each section is called out and cut. The draft is handled and separated. Here's another picture. Cutting the train into many cuts of the yardways also makes them the beginning at the end of the group of the block cards. Ordinarily, the block is never broken. Generally, the cut may be ended at the block to eliminate the block up and down lead of the cars ahead of the beginning switch into the proper tracks. The block cards shown in the switch of the list of the Figure 2.3 of the particular train are not properly ordered. This is not a violation. The grouping principle because the train was received in the foreign road, one belonged to another company, and to the road. All the cars were the train of the Conroy cars. Similar situation may be encountered overseas at the theaters when the trains received in the port areas necessary to the rapid port of the clearance of the bottlenecks may require that the train may be moved out of the port if they are mixed car groupings. The proper classification at the next yard on the line. B. Determining the cuts. The yardmaster's decision as whether the cuts may be made is based on the 5 different factors: the number of the cars that be handled efficiently within the switching locomotives, the length of the lead of the track with which cut must be worked. The 3. The number of the destination of the cars already for the various classification tracks in the yard. 4. The planned makeup of the outbound train. The 5. The fewest moves and most efficient time-saving methods that he can devise to do the job. Cutting information provides the switch list, and completed with the switch list shown in Figure 2.3 of the yardmaster, he decided 4 cuts will be required. The list shown following the following. Whether each cut will be made, the shown as the heavy or the horizontal line drawn immediately through the last car in each of the cut. For example, if the first cut will be made between the MDT 19495 and NYC 4311101, the order which he cut will be handled. The end of the yard which each of the cut will be switched, but in the switching order, the direction of each of the yards shown in the margin alongside each of the cut. The designation mark for each of the group, the particular track number for each of the car, the block cars which will be switched. Examples of a switch with detail of the yardmaster cuts of the train of the fowls. The cut 1 shows the upper hand and left hand corner of the figure. 2.3 consists of the 28 cars starting with the PRR 675699, ending with the MDT 19495, which will be switched to the west end of the yard. The Cut 2 consists of 15 cars starting with the NYC 431101 and including the remaining cars in the bottom of the left-hand column in the list of the first 3 cars at the top of the right-hand column, ending in the MP 51320, cutting the start of the lower right-hand corner because the cut is going switch to the east end of the yard. Therefore, the switch is possibly exactly opposite of the cut. In this cut, the 15 cars starting with the USAX 25638, which will be next in the switch engine, ending the CBQ 72055, cutting 4 will also be switched from the east of the end of the yard and contains 18 cars starting with the WL E30143, which will be next in the switching ending the GTW 106504. 2.9. Freight on hand. I previously explained when planning of the switching end of the train of the yardmaster must keep in the mind of the freight on hand or the cars of the block already on the various tracks of the yardmasters report on the duty of the checks line up and incoming cars. The cars already to the yard immediately plans outbound trains to be made up to run out of the yard to make the room for inbound tracks of the train. The check is made from the yardmaster's journal, explained in the following subparagraph. The yardmaster journal detailed record of the yardmaster journal is provided with the information yardmaster needs the planning of the switching making of the train. Journal per minute in the record current to each yardmaster on each unit. If the information consists of the discussed in the next of the subparagraph provides the yardmaster coming to the duty, written in the picture status of every track of the yard, he keeps it up to date, provided with similar information to the yardmaster as who reveals him. Example of the yardmaster figure 2.4 illustrates the gauge of the minute journal, but they might be kept with the combination yard showing the figure 1.2. The actual may be very long railroads. Basically, all journals are provided with a similar information servable to the same purpose. The in-theater operations, such as the yard journals, are kept as simple as possible. They show only essential information, additional with the name of the yard master and the terminal yard name, the date, and the time of the journal. And it also shows. One, the concept of the lineup of the inbound trains due in the next several hours. The three trains have been routed. The yardmaster notes the engine number, conductor's name, the number of the cars in each train, the approximate arrival time of each of the train, marking the NF, understanding the ETA estimated time of the arrival means no figure that the dispatcher will estimate the arrival time later. The listing of the every track in the yard, including the cars, their continents, and if any, the illustration figure 2-4 is shown in the first train of the lineup in order of the track and on track 5. The status of each track in the yard. This includes whether the cars are coupled, whether the east or west, either whether the cars are shop tracks are spaced and unspaced. Appropriate notation is also made with the air has been tested in the OK in on any track. Such notations are track 679 on the shop tracks listed the yard crews locomotives that they will be working on during the oncoming shift. Exactly which each crew is doing at the time yard master change whether each of the engine is awaiting relief. The yard master will usually change the shift a half or a full hour before the yard's crews change. Listing consistent with the trains ready for the departure. 6 other data pertinent to the yard operations appear with the appropriate portion of the paragraph deals with the cars of the tracks 1 through 17. This allows for the additional entries that will be made with the work progress and the picture of the yard changes after the 23 hours. All cars switch to these tracks of the work. All tracks of these from the west end of the yard will be entered in the left side of the groups already shown on the hand. All cars switch on the east end of the track will be entered in the right side. Illustration on this page. All entries posted in figure 2.5 should be consolidated, checked, and following the switching operation is completed. 210 switching operation. 2 major sources of the information are required to conduct the switching operation. Switch list in the journal to figure 2.3. Completed the track switch list provide all necessary information on recently arrived on train 76, which knows that the 76 cars on now on tracks 5. Remember, the military train in the theater of the operation would ordinarily be much shorter than 76 cars, although the example is primarily on a civilian operation. The pavilions are taught the same as the 4 military railroad. The figure 2-4 of the journal page that provided the detailed status of the classification yard enabled that you are not able to visualize the operation, but also to move the various block cars to the appropriate tracks. Annex A that provided the annex consists of the 2 sheets that are explained in the following subparagraphs. Sheet number 1 is the layout of the yard you are working with. Spread out of the convenient working surface so you will be able to cut the blocks of the cars moving them and operating procedures. Most of the working information necessary from the switching train of the track has been printed directly on the layout. It includes the standing of all tracks at the time of the train's arrival for the block standing of the 76-car train order on track 5. B. Sheet number 2 consists of the 4 strips of the duplicated representation of the blocks and cuts of the 76-car train ordered in track 5. Noted that the number of the tabs are bottom of the various blocks of cars. Cut out of the 4 strips of the number of the tabs of the bottom. Be careful to preserve the tabs because the number of each of the present each represents the track and the number of which each car group of the cars will be switched. When the strips are cut out, then line them up at the track 5 exactly the same order duplicated as the set printed in lower order of the layout sheet. You are now ready to pick up the train. Reduce the speed sheet to 2 on a typical grouping area of the figure 2.1 the train check converted with the switch list of the figure 2.3 and an example page of the journal showing completed yard figure to the 2.4, and you will now be using the existing extension of the yard during the operation but only on tracks 5 through 17. 211, the breaking up of a train. Your yard layout now shows the cars on hand for the 4 cars nearly arrived to the train. The 76 cars on the track 5 you will cut them and remove the proper tracks. This is directive of the yardmaster shown on the figure, shown on the switch list in figure 2.3 reproduced on sheet 2. This reference also that you must break up the train, switching one of the cut at a time, and you should remember that it is a regular yard. The yard train would be probably broken up with the locomotives working with the west and east end of the yard simultaneously. The first cut west end glance at the track check shows the first cut will be made with the west end of the yard. The locomotive is coupled with the first B and O car at the extreme west end of the track 5. The last car, the 28 car, the cut is the OW. The cut will be made with the rear end of the draft at the switch end of the west end of the track designated with the track figure 2-3 shows the last 3 cars of the cut of the 2 OWs ICP are listed in the track 16. Cut them off the right side of the strip. Place them on the west end of track 16 along the side of 14 CP and 12 OW mix continued. This operation, checking over each moving against the list and cutting yourself the cars of the strip, setting them on the proper tracks, follows the 6 DW on track 6, 1 EV on track 9, 2 B&O on track 14, 1 shop on track 17, 3 SVs to track 5. Note that the 3 cars will be set against the 6 SVs. Watch 1 on the end of the second cut. Later in the entire cut will be set over the track 6. The size the entire cut will be set over the track 6. This saves the yardmaster having to provide a separate track from the SV cars. 1 MO track with 11, 1 WD, track 14, 1 BR to the track 10, 1 CP to the track 16, 4 EV and 2 AYs to the track 9, 2 BOs and the track 14. You now have completed the switching for the first cut. The review is carefully preceding the itemized list and the switching list to duplicate standing of the original train of the track 5 or meet any of the part of the operation about which you may be doubtful until you are completely satisfied with the switching is correct. Through the second cut west, and the second cut is also switched from the west end of the yard and will go with the west end of the track designated with the check of the switch list shows the total 15 cars in this cut. Remember that, however, the 3 SVs from the first cut were switched back to the track 5. Therefore, the second cut will stand in the 9 SV, 9 9 DWs, 18 cars, and instead of 15 cars will be set over the track 6. Put these cars on the west end of the track 6 where the second cut is switched. The third cut is the end. Third cut east is the end. The procedure with this point conclusion switching operation now reserved will work the opposite end of the yard of the locomotive coupled with the first 10 CWs and the 4 ALT cars are first to be switched. The switch list shows that they will go to track 13 and cut them left sided tabbed and place them on the east end of the track 13. Proceed the cutting cars left side of the strip, placing them on the east end designated the tracks as follows. 1 DW the track 10, CW the 13, the couple complete the switching of the third cut, 4 the cut east, and the fourth cut is the switch from the east end of the yard that consists of 18 cars starting with the 2 BR to which the locomotive is coupled, ending with the 2 CYs. The switch directed with the TCYs and the F5 SVs cars to be switched to track 13. Cut these last 75 cars left side of the strip and place them in the east end of the track for 13. Therefore, the continuing of the cutting of the cars blocks them from the left side of the stripping, placing them on the east end of the track designated and follows 1 DW on track 6, 2 EVs on track 9, 3 LYs on track 14, 3 MOs and 2 BRs on track 9. This completes the switching for the fourth and last cut of the train, and breaking up the classification operation is accomplished. 212, review of the track standing. To ensure that you've completely switched operation accurately, check the standing of each of the tracks, starting with the track 6. Remove reading for the west and east, to the left of the right. The summary given as follows. Track 5, clear. Track 6, 9 to SV and 47D. Track 7, 100 MTY. Hoppers, track 8, clear. Track 9, 2 AYs, 92 EVs, 3 MOs, and 2 BRs. Track 10, 11 BRs. Track 11, 10 MOs, track 12 clear, track 13 to 12 AYs, 4 ELTs, 12 CYs, and 5 SVs, track 14, 2 BOs, 1 WD, 2 BOs, 27 Elwood locals, and 3 LYs. Track 15, 12 Red Rivers. Track 16, 2 CPs, 2 OWs, 2 14 CPs, 12 OW mix. Track 17, 1 shop and 12 holding and miscellaneous. Previously mentioned in subparagraph 2.9 of the additional entries entered in the journal record of the change picture. Each of the track of the yard operation progress. Looking back at the figure, 2.5 completed the page journal after all entries have been made in the switching operation just with the finish, and notice that the cars were switched to the east end of their respective tracks and are added to the right side of the original entries of the car side of the west end of the track is shown on the left side of the lineup of the east of the track in the book is now exactly with the lineup of the cars on each of the track of the yard and the practice of the various of the railroads. For another example, usually practice to have their standing on the left side for the on the page start of the car closest to the yard office and to the entrance farthest from the office from the right side of the page. However, the yard master made it find it convenient to make the entries in reverse manner. The method shown in the here is the thought to be more practicable. The yard master in Annex A, regardless of the method employed, the purpose is keeping the accurate record of each of the track in the yard at all times. The entries should be in the journal page in Figure 2.5, where the last being made and revealing yard master carry do the information will be transferred to the new page in the journal, showing the total of each track and shown in Figure 2.4. 2.13 Outbound trains. To understand the extent of the yard master outbound trains, re-examine the switch list in Figure 2.30 and the entire of the first cut according to the freight groupings. There are 13 separate cuts. By cutting the track into the track, however, the evidence of the yard master has reduced it to 12. The second cut has been two grouping classification, yet not to the switching cut, maybe be the handling. Consequently, one cut saved, and the third cut was saved, and letting the two groups to go to the track, and the last cut of the two switching cuts will be saved by the letting of the two groups on the track of the 13 that groups on the track 9. The largest saving time, however, is more apparent to the track switching the examined 9 on the examine it. Annex A, Sheet 1. The typical comparing the train standing with the typical grouping areas on the sheet of the train is proper station order, doubling the cars on the track 13 on the west end of the track, 6 of those of the cars of 10, 6 to the east of the end of the 6, another. The train is made up of the yard master head. Use separate tracks for the cars of the MO, the BR, and the SV, and ELT and CY classification. Number of the doubles have been necessary, but before the two trains were ready, the doubling of the tracks made handling cars twice, while often delays often accrues to the second handing. While doubling the tracks cannot be eliminated entirely, it can often be substantially reduced by employing a little foresight. 2.14 Local freight buildup. Handling local cars building on local trains almost identical with the method of the post office gathering, storing, and delivering of mail. Assuming the city is 89 blocks long, bundles of mail come through the sorting and the table of the clerks sort the mail. The various pigeonholes of the mail rack of the pigeonhole may be devoted to a particular street. The several hours of the mail is addressed to the straight appropriate pigeonhole regardless of the two house number. Before the carriers, the schedule to leave the mail in the box is sorted again now according to the house. The block numbers, the 6 letters, the carriers over the 15 blocks each. The mail would be sorted in 6 pigeonholes, each with representing 15 blocks. The carrier would receive the mail for the particular route. However, the one carrier covered the entire 89 blocks. As many as 9 divisions may be made in the resorting. Each would represent a group of the 10 blocks each, and namely 1,001,000 block 100,000, 1,100, 2,000, 2,100, 3,000 blocks, so on. The mail sorter consolidated with the 9 stacks have been carefully with the 8,900 block mail was on the bottom pile and the 100 block was on the top. Moreover, the successive order of all mail between would have been correct. The carrier would walked along this route. The mail would come off the top of the pile and match the house and number of the area. The system almost identical that is used in switching, delivering, and local freight. The car zone likewise in successive order the train and arrives at each station, which would be adjusted and practicable for the conductor to switch his train to each of the new station, as it would be the postman to reshuffle his stack of the mail every time he entered the new block. A description of local train. Most of the rail yards make one of the more daily local trains. The train generally cover the same time each day and frequently occupying the place of a time and table handled carload freight of the smaller station, along with which the general not served through the trains of the crew. These locals switching the work of each station, sometimes the switch of the freight house, tracks for the public-private tracks of the siding, and then routing the frequent local cars carrying the way carless car, also called the peddler in the pool car, which is one containing an individual less carload, sweeping the consignee of the various stations along with the way the name of the car arrived. But the fact is unloaded along the way that the car is unloaded in individual shipments and reminisce of the peddler unloaded and delivering his wares. The following subparagraph presents an example of the correct way of the building up for local freight train. Typical local switching and building up the local proper station order rather than complicated if the number of local car, large number of the cars, numerously grouping involved with the figure 2-6 represents as 0-500 hours. Track check of the 714 of the Conrail rails. The cars have been switched on the track of the previous 22 hours without regard to the grouping of the particular yard. The master has marked the check for the switching note. The check reveals that every station except for one of the Conroy and the AY yards. Cars with the AY yards are also included with the move on the local next to the caboose. An examination of Figure 2-6 shows that they would be in 13 and cuts 8 group the track, which is according to the track number of the column 1 mover. Moreover, 8 tracks would be required of the track, switching in 2 cuts first consisting of the 9 AY cars and scheduled with the remaining 35 cars. The switch in the entire of the track in 1 cut would be the water waste of the power because the innumerable back, forth, and movements of these cars would be complete. Could be disposed of initially with one move. Another disadvantage of switching the track in 1 cut before the entire of the track was switched. The crew would have the 9 AY cars having the end of all the other groups. To get them in all proper place, the rear end of the train crew must be reversed. The LY group use the extra track to dispose them. Use separate track, which made it an extra to double with the train doubled together. Switching showing the slow and incorrect method is given in the. It shows next. Here's the first cut and the second cuts. The column 2 figures the 2-6 shows the slightly different method of switching of the track, which switching of the operation reduces the only 3 cuts in the improper saving of the time accomplished doubling the train after the switching and switching list. Method of column 2 showing the full instruction as the conductor follows. This is the first cut, and the second cut it shows comparison in column 1 and 2 check of the track of the 14 figures 2-6 reveals the yardmaster has saved the double the principal making of the cars 9 through 21 by the handling of the 35th car. The saving of the 3 cuts doubles and the estimated 30 to 40 minutes having been saved. The saving of the time even better than greater and the crews were using the same switch lead the more while making the double the crew might possibly delay the yard wait at wanting to use the switch lead since the yard operations can cause the third of all rail transportation expenses. Their importance in eliminating delays and is apparent. 215 summary. Receiving inbound trains classifying cars designated commodity making outbound trains to the main jobs done with the railway yard. When the train received the yard inspecting with the good work of the engine cars, the defects making the record and any of the needed repairs. A yard clerk makes the track check showing the standing of the car in the train from the switch of the list is made from the show order in which the train shall be cut, broken up in switches. The car is classified with the group blocking according to destination. Outbound trains are made up of the from the cuts of the car switching to the designated tracks at departure of the yard. The crew must keep in mind the grouping of the principles for the first set off that should be placed in direct behind the locomotive cars for the next set off behind those. So on the next chapter discuss yard personnel and their work. And that completes chapter 1 and 2. Come back for chapter 2 the second session.